you're going to invest in something, you might as well put it into yourself, educating yourself and getting better and increasing your potential in life. I have found that usually when you have that fear well up, that's an indicator that you need to push forward, not to draw it back, but you have to push forward. And I've used that in my life, and that has brought me all the successes, is not turning back from the fear.
Hey, what's going on? Aaron here from the Remote Closing Academy podcast, and we have officially hit 30 episodes. So as I've said, every 10 episodes, we appreciate you very much for hanging out with us and having a good time and listening to all these episodes. We've been getting a lot of really good feedback of people that aren't in remote closing, that are into remote closing and setting and things like that. And just getting, really good feedback of, this is helping me along my journey. These are keeping me motivated. And that's really the main purpose of these podcasts, is to introduce new people to this industry, as well as people that are already in the industry, to give them some motivation to continue to move forward, because there is just so much opportunity within the space. So all that being said, on this episode, we have a heavy hitter for you guys today. You can see the title of this. This is someone that has been in sales for a good amount of time, 28 years. And not only was he able to come into RCA and just absolutely crush it within a 3-week period, but also get placed in a job where his minimum potential of what he can make in this offer is $44,000 a month, upwards of $100,000 a month, based on if you can just crush it more within the offer. So again, bare minimum to stay on the team, he has to make $44,000 a month, which doesn't seem like a bad gig to me. So with all that being said, we're going to go over his entire journey of how he got into sales, how he's been doing for the last 28 years in the industry, and what you can take from his journey to implement into yours to see success as a remote closer and an appointment setter. So with all that being said, make sure to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Before we, go too deep into it, Matthew, how's the day? How's the week so far?
Day's great. What are we? Is this Wednesday, Thursday?
Someday it's Thursday. Friday Eve.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week. Still learning a lot inside of RCA. And yeah, it's just every day is exciting, every day is new, and every day is a learning experience. So today's great.
Good. Yeah, we've been, within the school group, I've just been seeing your posts pop off just because they're getting a ton of engagement, just congratulating and stuff, which is, another like byproduct of being in the community, is like that you just have so much support behind you. But all that stuff aside, we're going to dive into a lot of stuff in this episode, talking about, journey from the entire, from beginning to end. Also just giving some tactical of like just how you were able to see, as quick of success as you have. But before we do that, as we do on these episodes, I want to just rewind the clock. So, let's go back, as far back as you want to, before you were doing anything with sales, before you heard anything about the Remote Closing Academy, just wherever you think would make sense to start.
Oh, sure. So 27 years background in sales. So I've been doing sales about as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
So I started in sales at 18. So came from a father who was a businessman. He ran a large organization, very, very successful. I thought I was going to actually kind of take over that. As a kid, that's what I thought. I'm going to work for my dad's company. It wasn't his company, but he was a high up executive with inside of the company. And so I grew up around that. I thought that's what I was going to do. Then got into, after high school, got into college. I was a pre-med student. And so I was going down that route. And then some things just happened in life, and ended up having a family earlier than I thought I was going to. And that just kind of changed my trajectory. But I started selling at 18, and my first sales gig was selling vacuum cleaners door to door.
Of course. You got it. That's like the prerequisite.
Yeah. So, knocking like 20, 50, 100 doors a day, probably more like 50 to 100 doors a day.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of doors slammed in your face, trying to get in and not leaving until you got a check, right? And so that was kind of the whole formula. From that, I sold meat out of a frozen meat truck, door to door again. I feel like I went downhill from vacuum cleaners to selling door to door. But then I was living in Washington State. I moved to Atlanta. That's where my dad was living, and he helped me get a gig working in a more traditional sales role, an account manager, longer sales cycles. And that's where I started to learn more and to hone my skills. I was, working with a lot of other guys that were honestly 20 and 30 years older than me and learning from them. And, in that, I sold the largest deal to date for that company, and they sold not too long after that, made a bunch of money in their sale. But I sold a contract for $5 million. It's a 3-year contract worth $5 million to the company. And, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that just springboarded. And so my career's gone on. And I got into mortgage for a while. And then when 2007, 2008 happened, I transitioned into corporate America,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up becoming an exec in sales, sales exec, and running sales teams after some success in a sales role, and got burnt out on that. Bought a furniture store, ran that for a couple of years, got back into mortgage, got back into corporate sales, and honestly, that's what led me to here today. I think I saw Cole on YouTube.
Yeah. So some ad that we have out there on the wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wasn't looking for anything.
Mhm.
I won't say I was content in what I was doing, but I was doing well. So it's not like I was looking for anything. And I have never clicked on one of those ads ever. And
Interesting.
so,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to, because obviously we can talk a ton about like just your experience in RCA and stuff like that. But, I want to go back a little bit, back to just the door-to-door side. Cause I think anyone that we've talked to or that I've talked to that's, that's done door-to-door is like, they have like, I mean, not to be dramatic, but they have pretty intense like stories or like learning lessons that they pulled from those. Can you like pinpoint anything that you maybe pulled from the door-to-door sales that could maybe like that you've seen translate into to help you today?
um, yeah. I mean, just the objection handling that I learned inside of that. And it was intense, honestly. You're sitting across from somebody in their living room and they're not honestly wanting to buy,
Yeah.
or they like the product, but the ticket price, honestly, for a vacuum cleaner was high. We're talking like nearly $3,000. And this was 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
20 plus years ago, right? 25, 26, 27. Yeah. I mean, 27 years ago. So it's a heavy price tag. And just watching these individuals that I was learning from handle objections. And I mean, there was a little bit of just not leaving until somebody wrote you a check. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
um, so it was kind of like you held them hostage a little bit until they were like, okay, I think the only way that this guy is going to leave is to give them a check. And I mean, I like this product, so I'm winning, but I'm also winning by getting him out the door.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I learned two things: one, how to handle objections, and two, that was really not the sale or the type of sales that I wanted to do long term. And I'm sure there's a better way to do it than I was learning there. But I was with some pretty shady folks back then that were
Yeah.
teaching me sales.
Yeah, I mean I think that's very similar to, I mean, anyone, back to, other people I've talked to about door-to-door sales. It's like they have the same kind of mentality because I did door-to-door sales, I think, for like a month and a half. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I wasn't even selling the stuff. I was just literally just an appointment setter to set for a solar company. And just to see, I'll never forget just like sitting I went like to shadow one of the closers basically, and just to just sit there in a room with them. I probably still have like recordings from from those conversations, but it's just like any objection that came through, it's just like they had something to say, like super witty. Sometimes it wasn't. I mean, I wouldn't say it wasn't ethical, but it's like they're literally saying everything that they can to
Mhm.
move them forward. But at the same time, like I definitely value that experience because it, you know, and I recommend anyone just to do some sort of sales, like some point in your life before, you know, maybe before you jump in, like whether it's door to door retail. You know, I worked in the service industry and that helped out a lot because it's like you basically have to train yourself to create relationships very quickly, right? And
Hmm.
then if you can get good at that and get good at, like, you know, people that don't want the thing, when you make the transition into, you know, the sales we're talking about, it's like these people are interested, they're like hot, they're
Yeah.
ready to buy, you just got to like help them make the right decision. So yeah, I'm sure that helped out a ton. So what, like, so from that type of sales into more like the corporate type stuff, like what was the stuff that you were selling there?
So first off, I was selling waste collection, hauling, I guess you could say it. So the
Mhm.
company I worked for ran trucks that would go and pick up commercial trash compactors, um, cardboard balers, and then also open top containers from construction sites. So you know, if you've ever driven by a construction site, you'll see these giant 20-foot long containers that are probably 8 feet deep. And then you'll see just debris stacked in them. Well, a truck comes and picks that up, and you sell that service. And so that's what I was doing. And that largest sale that I had was with, it's crazy. I remember this because it's so many years ago, but you know, things like that stick out to you.
Yeah, I
$5
was gonna
million.
say, yeah, exactly. You're gonna
So
remember everything about that.
yeah. So the way that whole process went is, you know, I'm a young kid. I walk into this, it's a drywall and construction products company. And contractors come there to buy stuff. And um, anyway, they were filling multiple open top containers every day. It was a huge account. I can't remember the name of the company. I think it started with an A. But anyway, that part doesn't matter. But I walked in, the owner happened to be there, and he was still under contract because these were like, you know, 1, 2, 3, sometimes 5 year long contracts. So it's not like you just walk in and get a sale. You had to build a relationship. And so for 6 months, I probably went in there weekly just to sit down, hopefully catch him. And then I took him to some sporting events, took him out to lunch several times, you know, just kind of wine and dining this guy, but also building a relationship with him and knowing that his contract was coming up because I found that out in discovery in the first couple conversations that I had with him. And, you know, just try to find out, is there any pain? So a lot of the things we do in RCA was part of that. It was just much more stretched out, not as condensed
Yeah.
as we're taught inside of this. But you know, over that 6 month period, when that contract did come up, I was in a position to walk in there and get him to sign a long-term contract with us. And, you know, it was massive. And then, you know, I left not too long after that, and they sold the company and made a ton of money just because of, you know, all this additional business that we had brought in over the last year. Um, so, I mean, that was just, you know, then I was really stuck in sales. Like that was it. I had success. I also was extremely cocky after that. Young kid, I sold this,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's patting you on the back. And I wasn't as good as I thought I was
Uh,
in that moment. You know, looking back, obviously I wasn't as good. I part of it was luck, part of it was just grit and going in there. And so what I lacked in experience, I made up for in just zeal and you know, probably just being a little bit more cocky than I should have been. And that won this guy over.
yeah.
And you know, and maybe he was just like, oh, this is a young kid, I want to give this guy a chance. You know, he knew this was huge, it would be huge for me. I imagine that was part of it as well.
Yeah. Was there, like, off of that, was there like a specific, like, humbling moment or something that happened that, like, kind of, it was just like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not like as good as I thought.
Yeah, because I left that company because I was cocky and I got headhunted by another company.
Uh-huh.
And then I go into, and actually it was like data sales, telephone and high speed internet for like companies, right? And this was a company that had just gone public. They had just like reached $1 billion in revenue. It was like an overnight success type thing. And I was drawn to that. I went to that company and I bombed. I just bombed. Um, and it was more just because this had, I had some easy success. And then I got into an industry that I didn't know as well. And I just didn't work as hard because I thought, oh, this was just going to come easy.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't grinding like I should have. And so it just didn't turn out. And then, of course I got a pink slip and like it's just not working out. And I was like, oh man. So yeah, that was definitely a rude awakening. I had to reevaluate some things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a turning point for sure.
Yeah, I think that's almost like necessary in a way, like because if you're not like kind of pushed back down, it's like, oh shit, like you wake up a little bit, you're like, okay, like I do actually have to put in this work, and it's not just this easy thing that I can kind of just coast through, being like a new opportunity. So, okay, so from that job, so I guess what's the timeline between that and then I guess you said you owned a furniture company. So what's kind of like the next?
So there's kind of a lot in between me and owner furniture.
Yeah.
But so after I was living in Atlanta. I live in Washington State now. So I moved back from Atlanta shortly after the letdown of that job.
Yeah.
I came back to Spokane, Washington, and I actually started bartending for a short stint. And a gentleman walked in that I knew, and I asked him what he was doing lately for work, and he told me he was a loan officer. And I didn't know even what that was. I hadn't bought a house yet or anything like that. I didn't even know what he was talking about. But I knew he wasn't educated. Like he didn't go to college, probably barely, made it through high school. I mean, he's a great guy, but I just knew his background. And I'm like, well, how much you making there? He's like, oh yeah, I made like $10,000 last month. And I'm like, what? Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So give me an interview, right? I don't even know what it is, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
So got an interview, got hired, and started my career in the loan industry and mortgage. And it was like the wild, wild west back then. The programs and honestly, a pretty slick business looking back. But yeah, I got there and I was working for a retail shop, and it was very salesy. I mean, I had to use all my sales skills because I was up against 10 other loan officers from different companies trying to get the same business because we were working on leads. We're all working off the same leads. So I'm having to build relationship with clients and do that very quickly and, get them under contract as soon as I can and all these things. So it was very, very fast paced, very bullpenish type of atmosphere.
Yeah.
But like my first month I made $7,000. My next month I made 12, and I'm like, wow, this is a great industry. And this was early 2000s. And so I rode that for a while, and then opened up my own net branch, which was basically my own business, and had other loan officers. And I learned a valuable lesson there too. Like it's important to have niches inside of industries, right? But you don't want to get too, have your eggs all in one basket too much in that. And so I found myself, when the crash happened, not having relationships with realtors and having enough purchase business. And so then I had everything into investment properties and low credit score type of clients, which paid the most. And that's why I was doing it.
Yeah.
But then that was everything that went away overnight. Right. So I found myself in a tough spot and closed down my business after about a year, and then transitioned into corporate sales, and did that for almost 12 years, and was very successful. Started off just an entry-level sales position, worked my way up, started running sales teams, both inside and outside. Really enjoyed that. but really got burnt out over just the corporate mentality and being just a number. I'll always be 143927 for the rest of my life.
Oh man,
And
yeah.
when I walked out of that place, they totally forgot who I was, right? I spent 8, 9, 10 hours a day with these people, and I walked out the door and no one knew who I was anymore. And
Oh
so there was
man.
a lot of realization in that. And then that's where I bought a furniture business.
So I'm curious why you did that. It's just like what.
Honestly, I don't know. Um, it was a college level education
Uh-huh.
over 2 years, and it cost me that much too. Like
Oh
the
man.
Yeah, it was. So I had no furniture experience, but a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying this business. Do you want to be my partner?" And I had
Mm.
some money in the bank and nothing to do really, and so I was like, "Sure, why not?" And so I invested a bunch of money, and um, I didn't lose it all, but I lost a lot of it, and
Yeah.
had to sell it to exit without losing even more.
More.
And,
Yeah.
and I learned a lot of lessons there. I mean, it was I did well at the sales end of it, but the headaches of owning a business, um, it just that part of it was just not what I expected, and not what I was prepared for. I liked the sales end of it. I liked doing that part, the engaging with the people, but the rest of it, honestly, was for the birds for me.
Yeah. No, I can relate with that so much. A lot, I've never run a brick and mortar, but I've had online businesses for, since 2015, 2016, up into about 2021. And it was very similar. It's like, there's all the other things of, you got to prospect, you have to, payroll, you have to run ads, do all these, you have to do all the back end work. And yeah, in 2021, I was like, I have 3 kids and I'm spending 15 hours running this business and I'm making like $5,000 a month because the
Mhm.
business is, has so much expenses. And I'm like, there's more, like, I didn't start a business to like basically work a job.
Yeah,
So it's like,
exactly.
so there was, so like, I can see that a lot. And like, one thing that a lot of people that I want people to take from this just from what you've talked about so far is, we talk a lot about how, sales is one of those like recession proof skills that you can take and literally implement everywhere. Like, you're a great example of like, you've been in sales for, you said 28 years.
27, yeah,
Yeah,
plus.
27, 28 years. And like, as we've seen, it's like, not saying it was easy to get, different sales gigs, but you've been able to use that one skill and then implement it in just so many different opportunities. And, from what it sounds like, you've done decent in most of them, other than the one that you kind of like that humbled you a little bit. But again, it's
Yeah,
just, it's a skill that you just get better and better and better over time. And, now, you're able to implement that into what we're doing now. So is that, so did you transition back to mortgage, you said, after the furniture store? Okay.
yeah,
So what's
mortgage
the
it back into.
timeline there in terms of like what year is it at that point?
So I bought the furniture store in 2020. Um, Exited uh like June of 22.
Well, I'm sure COVID didn't like, didn't help in that whole
No, I mean, I
process.
bought a business in the worst time possible, right?
Yeah.
Especially when half my inventory was sitting in a harbor off of California
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
shipping container. So again, I mean, there was all kinds. I mean, I even again, I brick and mortar versus online businesses, you got different things that you have to deal with, right? But in a brick and mortar business, you never think that somebody's going to drive their car into your store at 45 miles an hour, which happened to me, which shut me down for a period of time.
You were getting hit back like with everything that could go
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. I was sitting on a couch just in front of our office, waiting for somebody to come in to sell furniture to, and sipping my coffee. And 15 feet away, a lady drove her car through the front of my building at 45 miles an hour. Yeah.
Oh man.
In a Hyundai minivan. So anyway,
Goodness.
so
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
that's,
there are things like that.
yeah, just a little thing. But like you said, I'm sure there was a lot of I mean, outside of learning how to fix your building, there's other like internal stuff that you learned that, that you now bring to what you're doing now,
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, I can talk to a business owner that is struggling with their business and relate and totally understand where they're coming from, right? And why they're maybe looking for help with a sales team, or they don't have the resources they need right now, and that's why they're looking for help. And had I had a mentor as well inside the furniture business, maybe I still own that furniture business, but I didn't, right? So I'm having to learn everything, and I'm pretty good to self-taught, but there were struggles because I didn't know what I was doing. And, maybe I should have gone out there and tried to find somebody to mentor me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that's a good transition into just getting mentorship in more like the online sales stuff. But before we talk about that, because I'm always curious like what ads you saw and like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you said really clearly earlier, like you weren't looking for anything, right? And you weren't in like this like a pain of like, oh my gosh, you need to make money online or anything like that. So I guess number one, what about, I guess, what you saw in the ad like helped you kind of like make that jump and just like learn more information? Well, let's start
Yeah.
there because I have a follow-up as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. This is easy for me to answer. And you're right. I wasn't looking. I don't ever click on ads, and eh, now I can't say that. But so I heard Cole talking, and I decided to listen for some reason. I still don't know why. Um, but like 15, 20 seconds in, he uses a quote by Warren Buffett about it's not how you row the boat, it's about the boat that you're in. And it just all of a sudden my mind starts spinning like, am I in the right vehicle? Maybe it's just the vehicle. I've got the skills, but I'm just in the wrong vehicle. And then, he started talking about getting out of the matrix. And then I found myself moving from that call to a longer call. And, it just all made sense. It just all made sense. And then of course the money that's available and the working, I'm already working remotely. So I'm like, I want to continue doing that. But basically I was in a position where I can't have my cake and eat it too. I'm having to choose, right, between two different things. So I could go and get into fintech sales or SaaS or, because I have tech background, and so I can do this. I know the lingo. I know how to do it. But now I'm going to have to be on a plane, flying back and forth, meeting with executives, being in boardrooms, all that mess, living out of suitcases in hotels. And I love hotels when I'm traveling, but to do it for a living, no. I like being at home with my family, with my wife, sleeping in my own bed. But I've had to kind of sacrifice the amount of income I make because of that. So, and I didn't even know this industry. I mean, I kind of knew this industry existed, but I didn't know at what level and that it was as broad and as expansive as it was. So,
yeah, and the follow up to that, because and I guess you kind of answered it, but what would you say to someone? Because we talked to like one of our marketing angles we'll say is like, we talk to people that are, they want to create an income online and they aren't necessarily in sales. It's like, hey, we can teach you how to get good at sales. And then the angle that you saw, which is like, we call it vets, which is, people that are already salespeople. That Warren Buffett quote is literally like ingrained in my head because we just do so many ads on it. But, what would you say to someone that maybe is in a very similar situation that you were of like, they're not really looking for anything. It's just like, to kind of maybe open up their mind to be like, yeah, like, cool, you're doing sales, but there could be more opportunity here. Does that make sense? Like, what would you say to them?
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is just opening an entire new avenue of opportunity and possibility. That's what I saw as well. And just that so many of us who are vets in this industry, or not in this industry, but in the industries that we find ourselves in, everybody says your commissions are uncapped, which is a load, right? It's not true. Everything's capped by the amount of time. And, I found myself in a role where I enjoyed it. I make a good income. I make over six figures, But to increase what I make, I have to put 2, 3 times the amount of effort in, which I'm not opposed to hard work. But you start weighing out risk versus reward and time and all that. And so, what I saw here, what stood out so much is like, hey, I can maximize my time and I can maximize my income at this both. Like I don't have to short any part of it. And I can do it from anywhere. Like that, since COVID, obviously, the whole digital nomad, the whole thought process about how we work has completely changed. And I just, I think that's a big draw for a vet as well, who's done the travel, has done the inside the office, all that type of thing. This just, I mean, it just expands your whole way of thinking. It's exciting. I believe it like put new life into me. Right. And I think that's what it will do for others as well, who may find themselves in a similar situation as myself. We're successful, but we've maybe, I don't feel like I was complacent, but it just is going to give you something else just to push towards and another goal. And it's just going to bring new life to you.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, man, that's a great answer. That was more than I was looking for, but you're right, man. Like there's, I don't come from, really like a corporate sales background, but I understand of, just having something new and something fresh and something that like is relatively untapped, like, in the grand scheme of it, right? There's, it's, I think it's, this is statistic is like projected to be $325 billion a year industry in 2026. I think in 2021, it was like 5 billion, like just something like super minuscule comparatively. So, again, like back to the whole skills thing is if someone's like already has the skills, you might as well like just try something a little bit different that could, like you said, maximizing your time. You don't have to travel. You do it from literally the room you're sitting in. Like you can't really beat it. So let's talk a little bit about, so you see the ad, you come in. Was there like I guess the easiest way to put that, what type of prospect were you? Like, were you like skeptical at all? Like what, did you have any objections, or was it something where you're just like, hey, this makes sense. Like I'm going to jump in.
Well, I came into the 30-day closer. And it was an easy decision to make. I saw enough value that I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's do this. I even called a buddy and said, hey, I signed up for this. I can bring somebody on. You want to do it? And he's like, yeah, let's do this.
Nice.
So it was an easy decision. Skeptical? Not really. I saw enough in what I had gone through already that I'm like, yeah, there's something here for sure. And then I knew like the type of clients that RCA works with, and I started looking into the industries, and I'm like, okay, this is huge. It's growing. This is like kind of cutting edge, still. And it's not completely saturated yet. It's not, and I don't think it's going to be. Like there's so much growth that can happen. So yeah, I mean, it just was kind of a no-brainer for me, especially after I sat down and moved on from the 30-day closer to RCA.
Yeah, so I do want to, because I want to talk about that. I want to fill in some context because I
Sure.
forgot that you had started in 30 DC. So anyone that's listening, just to give you guys some context, we talk a lot about RCA, which is, remote closing academy, where it's, a little bit more, you have a one-on-one coach and we bring you through and there's a community. But relatively recently, back in October, November, we built out what we call a 30-day closer, which is kind of like an introductory program essentially for people that, they don't want to make the full plunge just yet, but they're like interested enough to like get their feet wet. There's still, a coach in there. Chris is amazing. You still have onboarding. There's still a community. There's still a course aspect to it. So honestly, like humble brag, we kind of over deliver on that for the expectation.
100%.
Like, yeah. So it's like, we want people to, obviously, upgrade so we can help you a little bit more. So that's what Matthew here is talking about with 30-day closer. Is he was in 30-day closer, and then you jumped into RCA from that. So what was I guess, what was the time frame there, and what made you want to like kind of upgrade into the next part?
Yeah, 5 days. So from the time I entered 30-day closer to going to RCA, I had gone through like a quarter of the coursework in that 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I probably had even done a mock call or two. And then I was in a group call with Chris Ackey. Great. I love him. He's great. And I learned some great tips from him while I was in that 30-day closer, which I used even before I got to RCA. So he just mentioned like, hey, if you're ready and you want to just take things to the next level quickly and how fast you want to ramp up. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I do. So I'll talk with somebody. So I right afterwards, or maybe even during that group call, I'm all booking with somebody, and I ended up talking with a wonderful guy, Mathieu, and he's got a great name. so
Yeah.
um, I sat down with him, and it was just a great conversation. And of course, he's like, "Hey, would you like to talk to one of our coaches?" Of course, I do. You know, and I know what I'm up for. I know what this call is going to be like, and then I sit down with John and speak with him, and he's just a great guy. You've done a podcast with him, and his story is incredible. And I'm sitting there smiling the whole time I'm on the call with him, because I've gone through your system,
Mm-hmm.
part of your system on the 30-day closer, and I see him, you know, putting it all together in front of me, and it was like a master class that I was going through watching this, and it was great.
Yeah, dude, that makes me super happy because there's such a big like misconception with, and we talk about this all the time too, but like a misconception on like sales and how it's this like negative thing, right? And we will say earlier we were talking about door to door, like if you're selling vacuums to someone that like might not necessarily need it, like there might be a little gray area there, but with this, it's like you like even just explaining the process of like jumping into the program and going through some of the content and talking with Mathieu, then talking with John, just from the tonality and the way that you speak about it, I want people to really pick up on like, we're not here to like sell you something that you're not going to use, that you aren't a good fit for, like any of that stuff, right? Like we're very straightforward with everyone of like, if we don't think you're going to see success, like we're probably not going to like bring you in, right? Like we want to keep the community full of people that we know are going to see success. Because if not, then that like gives us a bad name, and we don't want that. Yeah. So it's like I just think it's really, really, really cool the way that you're speaking about it. Of just like, again, you're having these genuine conversations with people, like and just going through the process. So okay, so you come in, you're in RCA, and then from first day of RCA into actually getting the offer, I think it was what, 4 weeks? You said.
Actually, it's not even 4 weeks. I
A little
was
bit
wrong.
less.
I think it was three, maybe in a couple days, something like that.
Nice. Yeah.
It wasn't a 4 full weeks.
So what happened in that time frame?
So met with my coach a couple times, mock calls. I was being proactive. Like I heard, hey, there's this 1 minute video thing that you need to do. So I started doing, I started writing a script and practicing a lot, and just like I want this thing to kill, right? I want it to be great. I also want it to be torn apart, right? I want my coach to tear me apart and say, hey, this is how you can make it better, right? So I sent her the first iteration of like my 1 minute, and she's like, okay, that's great, but hey, do this, this, and this. And it was very, very helpful, the advice that she gave me, because it made it so much better just with a few tweaks. And so, then I sent her the next one. She's like, oh, that's it. Perfect. Okay. We can use that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had got to 25 mock calls, and she listened to some of my mocks, and she's like, yeah, tonality's good. Your cadence is good. And, but do this, this, and this. You say too much. And and something, that's something I'm still working on. I've been working on it for 27 years.
Me too.
Um,
Well, not 27
so
years, but you know.
yeah, but I've been working on that for a long time. So anyway, she's like, okay, I want to get you into pipeline. She sends me the link. And so I set that up, go through the form, set up my call with them, my interview for pipeline, and that went great. I mean, it was just I may have over prepared, so over prepare because it makes everything so much easier. And I had my 1 minute video. I thought I was just going to pass off my 1 minute video to them, and so go through that. At the end of that interview, I felt like, oh, I killed this. I'm like, hey, do you want my 1 minute video? She's like, no, we're just going to record one right now. I'm like, okay. So, but again, because I had gone through this extensively and practiced so much, just like we do with mock calls, I was just able to rattle off a 1 minute, like supernaturally, right? So,
Yeah.
again, everything about this is all about repetition, and it just again shows how the whole process works. And from there, she's like, okay, you need to do this, 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 and this. Reach out to all these recruiters and from Closers.io, and we'll start giving you opportunities that come as we feel like they fit. So I reach out to everybody. I give a little excerpt about who I am, and to all the different recruiters, send them my 1 minute video, and then literally like 30 minutes later, I get a ping from one of them. They're like, hey, what industries are you in, or background? And I said this, and this. I said mortgage industry is got a huge background now. She's like, okay, I think I have something for you. And like, I don't know, 15 minutes later, I get the offer. I look at it. I'm super excited because it's exactly, I have knowledge. It's a coaching offer, which was something that I believe in 100%. And so I just got excited about it. And I said, yeah, I want to talk with them. And so right from there, I made another personalized 1 minute video to Tiffany, who is the individual, and sent that to her. Of course, she loved it. And she's like, can I talk to you tomorrow? And she was going to have a group interview on Monday with, a few different people. I met with her on Saturday. I could tell that went very well. It was like a 45-minute call. And so I was also self-sourcing during all this, right? So, and I had aggressively done that. So I have other offers coming into and other interview at the same time. And so I reach out after that call, and I told my recruiter, I said, hey, I got some self-sourced interviews coming up too this next week. And she's like, oh, they want you for this offer. So do I need to tell them to put it together right now? I'm like, no, don't worry. I'm good. I want that offer.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but don't pressure them to give it to me right this second. I'm fine. I can wait. Like, I'm patient. But that's how it all came together.
Bro, that's such a good story. Just like hearing because I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts, but just from listening to what you're talking about of coming in, and I hear a lot of like a very consistent theme within what you're talking about is like just doing what's recommended, right? Like taking action, not waiting, like not being, because I think a lot of people fall into the the analysis by or paralysis by analysis, right? It's like they kind of get stuck when like literally anyone that's watching this that's in the program or not, it's like I want people to understand that it's a very, very linear process. It's like if you don't get placed, or if you don't get a job, or if you don't like find an offer that you're looking for, there's just so much opportunity out there. And I'm not saying like if you don't do it, it's your fault, but it's like if you just put in the work, you do like Matthew's talking about, do the mock calls, you get feedback from your coach, and more importantly, you implement the feedback from them. It's just you almost have to try to not see success and get placed. And you're a perfect example of that. So what is so I mean, spoiler alert, you got the gig
Mhm.
with them. So let's, obviously we don't have to name, names of the companies or whatever, but just kind of like what overall is like the offer, like income potential, just so people can kind of understand what's possible there.
Yeah, so it's all about the mortgage industry. And so this individual is like a mortgage guru, many, many years, a six figure, has made millions in the mortgage and real estate industry, and has a proven system that worked even during that downturn I talked about back in 2007, 2008. Back in the industry back then, she survived, I didn't, right? So, I'm like, man, if I would have had this back then, your system, um, I may still be doing mortgage. Maybe I'm doing what you're doing right now today, right? So this is what's going through my mind, as I'm looking at this offer. And really, it's an academy to take your loan officer or mortgage professional, who, it doesn't matter what level they're at, whether they're brand new into the industry, whether they're struggling and been in for a while, or that they're a veteran in the industry and doing okay, but just want to do better. She's going to take them and take somebody that's not making six figures and get them there, and take somebody that's making six figures to making seven figures and beyond. So it's an academy style. It's very similar to what RCA does, but in the mortgage industry. So that again attracted me. As far as KPIs and the offer, it's a pretty high ticket offer. And the KPI at 100% of targets, $44,000. I mean, from there, it's really, how well you do, how high can you get your closing ratio, right? Will determine how much you're going to make. So, I mean, could it be an $80,000 to $100,000 a month opportunity? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, I wanted to clarify because you said 44,000. I want people to know it's like 44,000 a month.
A
Because you
month.
didn't
Yeah,
put,
yeah. That's
yeah, you
not,
didn't put
yeah,
a month. I just wanted to
per month,
clarify.
per month.
Because when we and it's interesting too, because anyone that's listening to this, that you hear 44,000 a month, 80,000 a month, 100,000 a month, is for some people are like, what? Like they have to like rewind and like listen to it again. But when you're in this industry, right? And it's from what I understand, it's like a $17,000 offer for the mortgage brokers. So you got to remember, guys, like if someone is bringing on a closer like Mathieu, and he's selling multiple of those per month, it makes sense for them to, if he's doing $1 million in sales, it makes sense for them to give him, 100,000. Like it's fair. It's 10% of that, because the business wouldn't be there unless it, and he was there in those shoes. And, another thing that I kind of picked up is just like, because you just started with with this specific offer, but you can already hear like the passion behind, like you already have that passion kind of built in because you've lived in that, right? You were a mortgage broker, and now you're going to sell to other like struggling or mortgage brokers that want to do better because you've like felt that. So I think another big takeaway for anyone is there's like Mathieu talked about earlier, there's so many different offers and opportunities. Like you can literally think of anything almost, and someone probably has a course or a program or an academy or coaching to help that person get better at those things. So just think about like when you guys are doing self-sourcing or whatever, is like there's more often than not going to be something out there that's for you that you can really get behind, that you can really be passionate about, and that a lot of times will just sustain you along the way, right? I love RCA because I was a struggling, agency owner that didn't want to do that. And I could just be like, hey, I can like help these other, businesses make more money and I get a commission, like no brainer,
Yeah.
So what, I'm super stoked for you. Like you've put in the work and obviously it's showing. So what are like some, what are some goals for yourself? Like, let's say in the next like 6 months, like where do you want to be, like internally within the offer, like on a personal level, like financially, like have you thought about that?
Yeah, well, I want to make that 44,000 a month a reality. That's
Yeah.
for sure, right? And beyond. I'd like to maximize that offer, whatever it can be. I want to get that, and I think in 6 months, that will have definitely enough time to have done that, to find out what can I really do with this offer. Um, you know, when I came into RCA, when I sat down with John and with Matt, they were asking me like, "Hey, what do you want to make?" Right? I've been a six-figure earner since I was 26, right? And so I wanted to make that and more. I've never made multiple six figures. I've got close to it a couple times, right? I think my best year was 175,000. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's nothing to complain about.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I want to make what my wife and I make together and double that, right? So, I'm 35 to 40,000 plus a month is where I'd like to get and do that on a consistent basis. What that does for me, my wife and I plan on moving outside of the country within the next year. That just makes that whole transition easier, right? It's happening no matter what, but that just makes everything easier. And so I'm very, very motivated by the goals I have. I'm 45 years old. Um, by the time I'm 55, I'd like to be able to work only if I want to work, or this industry, I could see myself doing it for a very long time. Just because I think I'm gonna just have a ball. I already know I'm already having a ball, so it's just gonna get better. So I could see myself doing this longer. But if I want at 55, be like, hey, I'm good. Have stacked enough away that I'm on the playa in Costa Rica, and
Yeah.
so that's part of it. And I love to give back. My wife and I already give a lot, and I would just want to do more of that. So, and just we live beneath our means right now, so it's not necessarily about the money, or I'm not the guy that wants the Ferrari or the Lamborghini. I don't need that for my ego, but not saying that that's an ego thing
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Please don't take that the wrong way. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just not
It's
it's
not
just
an
not me.
internal motivation. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
not me. But I have a lot of other things that motivate me. And what I saw too with this industry, which is very important, is I'm going to make these goals happen no matter what, just because that's who I am, right? But this cuts my time down, right? Instead of 20-year plan, now I got a 10 or a 7-year plan, right? And that's what is fantastic about this whole industry, what Cole Gordon has done. And I got to give a plug too here. Like I said, 27 years in this industry. I've been through every sales program, and not like Cole's, but I've read every book, probably 150 to 200 books. I've lost count. I don't know how many books I've read on sales and leadership and self-development. And I've never, ever seen anything like what Cole Gordon and RCA has put together. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. I'd be such a better salesperson today. And I feel pretty good about myself, but I'd be all that much better had I found something like this, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But,
Yeah.
I'm glad I
Dude.
found it today, because right now is the best time to find it. Right now, today.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it. And that just those words and hearing that, it's we have a ton of people that come through the programs, and I tell everyone this. It's just having these conversations just gets me so excited to like just continue to making videos, making podcasts, like getting just the word out there that if I could just help one person a day, right, that's my goal. Literally, like I don't care about the money side. It's just like hearing these stories and having these conversations is what I live for, man. So I'm stoked for you. So I know I want to be respectful of your time. Last, I guess, 1-2 questions. What would you say to someone that is just on the fence, right? And maybe not necessarily, and we can kind of put into 2, but just on the fence about jumping into like just the remote sales industry in general. Maybe they have a business, maybe they're trying to run an agency, just like something you would tell that person.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking about this even before we started this interview. I have found that usually when you have that fear well up, that's an indicator that you need to push forward, not to draw it back, but you have to push forward. And I've used that in my life And that has brought me all the successes is not turning back from the fear. There's something that is in you that's just like, I'm not sure, this is not going to work out, or maybe I'm really content with what I'm doing right now. um if you just push through the fear, the success is on the other side. So many people stop just before they take that right turn where they see the the rainbow, or the golden nugget, and it's just around the corner, but they stop right before they turn that corner. And just don't let yourself be that person. I almost did it. I've almost done it several times where I was gonna stop. But I mean, another example is, just in this program, going from one to the other, there's always like, should I do this? Anytime that fear welled up and said, hey, maybe not, I'm like, no, I have to now, right? I have to. So you
Yeah,
have to
man.
do, you
Yeah,
have
and
to.
exactly. And we were talking beforehand too. It's like I can look back at like any difficult decision that I've made, like to like at the end of the day, that it's the right decision. Like that's why, like you said, it wouldn't feel like you wouldn't be nervous if it was the wrong decision, right? Like you're feeling nervous because it's the right decision, but there's just like little like logistic things that you have to get yourself past. So that's
Yeah.
it's super spot on. And that's a big thing that I've really like dove into, is like anytime I feel a little bit like even back when I was doing some of the solar sales stuff, it's like if I could feel my like palms getting sweaty, I'm like I just have to jump and like ask for the sale, or whatever was on the other side. So that's perfect, man. So I'm gonna do a super quick outro. I usually like to end with this, is that was a really good like golden nugget, but if you can think of maybe like one more like tip or trick or just something for someone that is either just getting in the industry or maybe in RCA or whatever it may be, I'll give you 30 seconds because I'm going to do this outro, but think of that and then we'll end with that. So anyone that's listened to this episode so far, I mean, we're literally an hour in. By the way, one of my favorite episodes. So shout out to Matthew here, but you're probably interested at least a little bit in remote closing, whether you are a sales veteran, or you're brand new to sales, or maybe you have a business and you're thinking about making the transition and focusing in on this. Down in the description, there's going to be a link to a video. Cole Gordon, the guy we've been talking about, a business partner, he put together a video that really just goes over the step-by-step of not only what remote closing is, like it goes more in depth, like we've kind of talked about it, but if you're brand new, like you're going to want to watch the video to figure out what it is. And he also covers exactly really like the 4-step process that you can use to get to the next level if you're looking to do that. So full transparency, at the end of that video, there is an option to work a little bit closer with us and kind of take the same steps that Matthew is here to, for us to kind of hold your hand through the process and make sure that you see success in the same way that we've helped him. So again, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, down in the description on the podcast, it'll be in the show notes and you can click that link. And yeah, so what you got, man? Give you enough time?
Yeah. This is what I would say. You're going to invest in something. You're going to put your time into something. You might as well put it into yourself, educating yourself and getting better and increasing your potential in life. Because you're either going to invest your time in somebody else and what they're trying to do, or you can do it right here in yourself. And I would take your energy and put it right here.
Boom. We will end on that, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us for the past hour. And Matthew, dude, thank you for spending the time with us. I do appreciate it. I think a lot of people are going to listen to this and even if they just take 10 minutes from what we talked about, there's so much good stuff in here that they can just re-listen back to, and I'll be doing the same. So thanks you guys for hanging out with us. If you have any questions, let us know, obviously down in the comments, leave a like, check out the video down in the description. And Aaron here from the Remote Closing Academy podcast. We'll see you guys on the next one. Talk soon. Peace.